Always the joker. So out goes number 3 car, who took over from Nate Berton. That was didn't look like a Romain Dumas. I think that may be. Oh, it was a Romain Dumas. Okay, so there we go.
Okay.
He is now in the number 1 car. There's your leaderboard. 1, 2, 3. Toyota and the Rebellions, the number 7 car, now 1 lap behind Rebellion number 3. It could yet finish on the podium. United Autosports, Jota, and then an arm wrestle. Jota, G-Drive, Panis, Graf and Signetek battling for the podium in LMP2.
It's any one of those cars a minor problem away.
Edexport from a lap behind the field now up to 8th and 12th with their cars. Boy, those boys and girls in the team worked hard on Friday to get a car on track, and they have worked relentlessly ever since. GT Pro Class, Aston Martin 97, 51 Ferrari. One of those should win it. 95 and 71 waiting in the wings in case there is something to catch from the table. TF Sport, the remaining Aston at the top of AM, ahead of AF Corsa's 83 car and a 77 Dempsey Proton car, relentless in their pursuit. And further down the order, our retirements and exclusions start in 49th place with the Jackie Chan DC Racing car number 37. Dragon Speed 21 is out. WeatherTech crashed out of the race by the Racing Team Netherlands car. MR also retiring, so too G-Drive by Algarve. Duquesne by Colles crashed out. High Class, more mistakes and problems with that car than any team deserves. AF Corsa's 52 car, big crash. So for the 55 Spirited Race car, that was also hit by an LMP2 car, and Euro International, the first official retirement of the race, number 11 car, just ground to a halt and declined to proceed any further. Martin Haven and Alan McNish calling the action as we head into the final 5 hours of what is, was and will always be remembered as quite a crazy race. Not only because it's not June, despite looking like June, it is mid-September. There are no fans to be seen anywhere. This race being run behind closed doors, but Alan's still being run like every other Le Mans at a relentless machine-breaking pace.
Yeah, and there's been quite a few machines that have broke under this particular pace, quite a few drivers that have made mistakes under this particular pace, because it's still the Le Mans 24 hours, it's still that trophy, it's still that recognition that ends up on the winners. And right now, the winners have still got quite a long way to go, even although this Toyota Gazoo Racing that we're riding on board with, Sebastian Buemi's got a good lead. They're in a comfortable position. They have been since their sister car, who's now currently in 4th place, had a turbo failure and had to go into the pits. However, we have seen that failures can happen. And from that perspective, I think there's still always that point in the back of your mind. You know, you've kind of just got to let it run through. However, let it run through is a lot harder than it sounds.
It's hanging over their head as well, isn't it, that turbo failure?
Yeah, well, by now they'll have had a bit of a look at it and understand if it is something that was a one-off. However, deep investigation into it will have to be done by the turbo supplier in that respect, and so it's not a 5-minute job. This is the number 1 car, which is in 2nd place in the pits, and that car has kept, I would say, kept it honest all the way through. And it's there to pick up the pieces. If there is an issue, then it's there to pick up the pieces if the 8 has any problems.
Gustavo Menezes at the wheel. He'll go back out again. This car was in 2nd, now down to 3rd place. It's the number 3 car, the not regular season entry, that is currently in 2nd. And 1 lap only ahead, the number 1 car of the number 7 Toyota. So relentless pursuit by GGR's number 7 car means that Toyota may yet get 2 cars on the podium. Look at the top speed in the classes, 3:05 for Risi Competizione. So Jules Gournot with the new high-speed mark. That may well have been set in a tow. 3:03.9 for the GTE AM cars. And Gustavo Menezes on the outlap, threading his way through, I beg your pardon, that's Romain Dumas threading his way through traffic.
Yeah, Gustavo Menezes is coming through Tetra Rouge, so he's 1 complete straight behind Romain Dumas for the 2nd position.
Yes, 29 seconds, so it is a battle for supremacy between the 2 Rebellion. Just 29 seconds in it. 31 in the pit lane. This car is in 4th place and came in less than a minute behind Jean-Eric Verne in the 3rd place G-Drive car. So this is where the knife fight really begins. There is a minute and 42 seconds between Paul di Resta, who leads for United Autosports, and Roberto Gonzalez doing the final of his driving stints in the Jota Sport 38. Michelin lead Goodyear, Michelin 3rd with G-Drive, Goodyear 4th with Panis Racing. So who is going to have more representatives on the LMP2 podium? I mean, it's fair to say the way LMP2 has gone in the next 4 hours and 54 minutes, none of the top cars may finish on the podium. However, they do seem at least to be going in that direction. And now, inside the final quarter of the race, avoid problems. It's a little bit like the Daytona 500. It's the Daytona 450, and then the race breaks out. Here, if you can get into the final couple of hours, then you can see what position you're in and how much you can do about it. All the planning and back counting and head scratching and plan A, B, C, D, E, F and G-ing doesn't help when Lady Luck intervenes. You've just got to grind it out for 22 hours and get yourself into a position to be able to contest victory or a podium finish. Or in some cases, and factually every year for quite a number of teams, just to make the checkered flag. Brendan Hartley still with the All Blacks helmet on, the nighttime helmet. He takes over from Sebastian Buemi. So Buemi goes off for a wash and a brush up, and maybe a fry up, who knows. I'm sure they have a much more well thought out breakfast than I have had. However, 2 fried eggs and a couple of bits of bacon on some French bread, that's the breakfast of kings, mate, let me tell you. Whatever James Hunt may have said. Through goes Rebellion, past the Dragon Speed car. And that Dragon Speed car of Henrik Hedman in 13th position now. And again, 3 or 4 hours ago, that car was looking very strong for a top 6 position. So many cars. People often say, what on earth do you find to talk about for 24 hours? Well, you know, obviously people who don't know me, but we've got 59 cars here, each of which has a story that we barely even scrape the surface of.
Oh, good grief, yes.
Because I'm now going to say, that Dragon Speed car, it was a top 6 contender and it was charging up the order, and now it's back down in 13th. So what on earth happened there?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Dragon Speed. Well, we'll wait for a moment because we're going to be going on board for just a moment with the #1 Rebellion, 3rd place with Gustavo Meneses. Let's hear what's going on for Gus.
Yes, you're doing food on fuel and the brakes feel good, so just continue doing what you're doing.
This is a leader in GTE Pro, the second car there, the Aston Martin. Alex Lynn at the wheel, and they've got a minute and 2 seconds gap to the AF Corsa. However, slightly different pit stop strategies between the two of them, so it's not quite as much as that in reality. And also looking towards the end of the race, because now we can start to predict where it's going. The Ferrari has got a slightly shorter final fuel stop as well, and so we'll gain some time in the pits.
To complete the point I was going to make about Dragon Speed, we said it earlier in the race, I repeat it now, the only team to have won races in LMP2 in IMSA, in the ELMS and in the WEC, and did so in remarkably short order. 2 cars here again for Elton Julian's team, but neither of them had very much by way of mechanical luck, I'm afraid. The #21 car out, the #27 car delayed.
A little bit more information from Toyota about what happened with the #7 car. Came in and they had to replace the turbo during the night time, and it turns out that that was a problem with the exhaust manifold, which had to be replaced. Of course, it's exhaust power that spins the turbo, and the other side of the turbine shaft is in the intake manifold, and that compresses the mixture and forces it into the cylinder at above atmospheric temperature. That's what a turbocharger does, driven by exhaust gas. forcing air into the cylinders to give you more power, more bang for your buck. And of course, that's a virtuous circle, because the more it's spun by the exhaust, the more power it forces in, the more the exhaust comes out quickly, the more power it can produce in, which is why you have blow-off valves and limiters on turbos. Otherwise, it would just endlessly keep producing more power until the engine grenaded itself. Here's our second car in GT Pro. This is Alessandro Pierguidi now at the wheel of the 51A, of course, this car's been in contention right from the beginning, and there was lots of flappy Italianate gesturing when they went from first to third in a pit stop early on. The sister car 71 rising to the top, and the Aston Martin at that stage sort of being leapfrogged and also leapfrogging one car itself. But these guys have fought their way back into contention, with Daniel Serra joining the world champions, the former world champions, Alessandro Pierguidi and James Calado at the wheel of the car.
Yeah, they've been very, very strong, this car. Kind of a little bit off in practice, kind of got there a little bit more in qualifying, and as soon as the race started, then they were full action stations.
Critical moment there. I think Brendan Hartley has just put another lap on Romain Dumas. He is now 4 laps behind in the number 3 Rebellion. That is the second placed car, and that was Hartley just in front of him. So that's 20 minutes of mechanical carnage that they have built up an advantage for the number 8 Toyota Gazoo racing car. And so seemingly the battle may be on for second place between the Rebellion team. Cars number 3 in second place and number 1 in third place. They are just 30 seconds apart. They are being caught slowly by the number 7 Toyota, but it is not yet in a position to take a podium spot.
Oddly, was about to make the reverse point there. We've talked a lot about the potential for positional gain, really significant positional gain in LMP2 and GTM. We haven't really done that about LMP1. We've had a significant problem for one of the Toyotas. They've got one bullet left in the gun, and if that bullet, I'm afraid, fails to fire, then it's a Rebellion 1-2.
Yes.
Unlikely, but it needs,
no.
It needs a 15-minute delay for Rebellion to win Le Mans.
But exactly right, and it was unlikely that a car as well rehearsed, as well detailed, as well practiced, as frequently used and abused by its drivers as the TS050 was going to have an exhaust manifold failure.
Indeed.
So it could have been, you know, the way it's been driven, it could just have been a component failure. But again, you know, I you refer back to Alan or to Peter Dumprecht. If you've got a sister car that is identical, that's had a problem, permanently nagging away in the back of at least your engineer's mind while you're busy lapping it in the door handles, is that it might come and find you, because it'll be the same component supplier on both cars.
Yeah, Magnussen looking for away by Comledegaard again, and finding it, I think. No, not quite there. Oh.
And the G-Drive car right behind going, come on, boys, make your mind up, leave some room for me. They didn't really leave room, but he made it anyway.
Yeah, Magnussen didn't want that to happen there, did he? Needs the prototype to hold him up a little further down the road, which he does not do.
We see now, hopefully the JMW guys will be looking at their GPS map and saying, P2 car up behind you, let him go, let him go. And then he will try and fight Comledegaard, maybe as they get onto the Mulsanne, maybe a little before that. We'll have to wait and see how close he can get. But the run down to the first chicane would be possibly the next opportunity he'll get. I do like the livery on that 61 Lucic Ferrari, with a very Ferrari 250 LM look to it. Great livery. Let's hear from Jotas Roberto Gonzalez in his final stint in the car.
Roberto, we really need to do that fuel. When I say every chicane, Mulsanne and Indianapolis, I mean it. We're going to get the same problem as last time, if not worse. We are P2, looking to challenge for the win here.
Okay, so when he left the pits, it was look after the tyres, and now they're saying we really need to do that fuel. I'm not kidding you here, Roberto. This is about potentially winning the race. Save the fuel for me. And that means Alan rolling off the throttle a fraction early, getting on the brakes a fraction early, trying to keep the speed up, but without using the right-hand pedal.
And that's a tough one for the gentleman driver, but clearly outside of his fuel numbers at the moment, by the tone from the engineer.
Yeah.
So this, it's not as... It's very easy to see this, isn't it? Is gentleman driver, get in, drive as fast as you can. No, there's a lot more at stake here, and we've seen Roberto Gonzalez, in terms of the time, is doing well to hold off Jean-Luc Verne. That was a 3-minute gap. It's down now to 2 minutes and 34 seconds in what is going to be Roberto's final stint of the race. Trouble for the 78 car.
Yeah.
That's gone around at Dunlop.
Horst Junior, Horst Felbermeyer.
But within that task, hold off the superstar international race driver that's chasing you. You've also got to make sure you're not using too much fuel or the tyres.
Yeah, don't use too much fuel, which means rolling into the corners without throttle and using the brakes. But that also necessarily means you're using the tyres more, but don't do that either. Yeah, it's not just lose as little time as you can to United and to G-Drive. It's also bring the tyres back alive and bring the fuel back within the window that we need. As you say, it's not just get out and rag it mercilessly because we're here at Le Mans. There is a lot of subtle subtext and context going on. Into the pits comes the number 7 Toyota.
So the point is here, in those moments you have, as we all do, thinking, I could do that, factor those things in as well.
I tell you what, I think all you need to do to dissuade you of that thought is to spend a lap in the passenger seat.
Oh, God.
And then when you are dragged out of the car, a gibbering wreck, and you in a P2 car,
put into a bucket.
I can't even begin to imagine. The closest I've got is a GT3 car, and it just blows your mind. As a road driver of anything, it is way beyond your ken. Now, that's the sort of thing that does a lot of damage to cars, to tyres, to suspension, to floors. Don't drop the wheels off the curbs. Those inside edges are very sharp, very rough concrete, and they rip tyre sidewalls to shreds. Paul di Resta out, Felipe Albuquerque in. Has Phil Hansen done his minimum stints?
Phil's definitely, he's been in just as much as everybody else.
Did a lot of legwork during the night, Phil Hansen.
Yeah, he did a lot. That was a 10-lap stint at the end from Paul di Resta, so Paul did a triple plus a tiny bit on that particular one, so it was a very strong stint for him. And I know he's got a bit of support at home from his 2 children who are up watching this one, Leo and Perla.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And good to see that Leo was in a kart himself a couple of weeks ago, just to make sure that that family tradition goes on.
To make sure that Daddy's never got any money to spend.
Well, I raced against Paul's daddy himself.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a little bit of lineage there.
And there's been, you know, with the di Restas, with the Franchitis, with the Leslies, there's been this sort of, and the McKaigs, there's been this sort of constant overlapping of generations supporting each other, because you supported my son, I'm now supporting your son, and so on and so on. And it's, we joke, don't we, about the Scottish motor racing mafia, but it is a really tight fraternity. Although I have to say, I'm not sure that I could survive a Scottish motor racing driver's dinner.
One bit of housekeeping, just from a visual clue we've just spotted, not shown on the screen, but the 75 car is out of the race. The garage door is down.
Oh. So confirmation that we don't get, well, in this day and age, naturally, we don't get the pieces of paper shoved through the back of the door by the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Just to check that box every hour, so we don't get the official abandon, but the Iron Links garage door is down. That is the universally accepted signal of a car being out of the race. 63's door down there as well.
We knew that one. That was the Tony Verlander incident at Rouge.
He got clattered off by Nick de Vries, cost them both a lot of time, and in the end, it took half an hour or so for the WeatherTech car to get out of the gravel and back to the pits, or to be rescued from the gravel and sent back to the pits, and it never reappeared. 61ing with a little bit of a refastening of that rear hatch.
Yeah. In normal times, we'd be waiting for, expectantly at this time, the next raised voice on the PA from Bruno van der Stek for another drama. it's got dramas left in this. Little doubt about that. It always does. We've got 4 hours and 40 minutes remaining. There are gaps that can be closed on pace, but there's going to be other dramas as well, I'm sure.
Well, we're an hour and 20 minutes into a standard World Endurance Championship race. We're 40 minutes longer than half the races we've had this season. So, yeah, there's, you know, it's a full race left to go and more. There's a lot that could yet happen. And chief among what might happen is what on earth is going to go on with our LMP1 podium. At the moment, the number 8 Toyota leads by 4 laps, so that's a 15-minute mechanical disaster window. Behind them, Rebellion number 3 and Rebellion number 1 now less than 30 seconds apart, and then behind them, a lap off a podium spot is the number 7 Toyota with Kamui Kobayashi fresh out of the pits. This is the GTE AM leader, Johnny Adam aboard the TF Sport Aston. A winner at Le Mans in GTE for Aston Martin 3 years ago in the pro class, and as a pro driver, he is the hot shoe in the 90 TF Sport Aston. He's been placed there by Aston Martin and doing a great job. In fact, all 3 drivers doing a great job. What about Sally Yollett? Because he didn't do many or any laps during the night time, and that means that although he did quite a lot on Saturday, how much does he still have to do on Sunday, do you think?
I think Sally's clear now, to be honest.
Right,
I think he's done his laps, because Sally he's definitely done 6-7 stints through the course of this race.
Yeah. Well, and because the weather was so good yesterday and it was expected to be thundery and miserable during the night, I think a lot of teams made sure that when it was warm and dry and sunny and clean, they got their bronze and silver graded drivers through as many laps as possible while the going was good. So 10 laps left in your Le Mans 24 hours, I think was the message. So, yeah, give it as much as you've got.
Yeah, he's also under pressure from Paul Lafargue behind. This is for position. About to say before we went to that, there are going to be a couple of stories, whoever finishes where, that need to be written about the recovery drives from both EDEX Sport cars and, for that matter, the Signatec Alpine cars, all of which had early problems, and they have been consistently quick and reliable.
Now, remind us what happened to Signatec Alpine, because that was very early in the race, and I can't for the life of me...
It was cooling.
Oh, yes, it was. It was water pressure, wasn't it?
Lap
and they had
1.
to come in.
It was lap 1. They came in back in the garage, engine running hot.
Defending double winners, remember, and they don't know they're going to win it again, but what a fight.
Oh, Toyota about to unlap itself. Is it there from the Rebellion? Was that the number 1 Rebellion that went past us?
Number 3.
Number 3, okay. So it's the number 7 car. It is about to unlap itself from both Rebellions, because the number 3 is the 2nd placed car. Now that won't make it a podium position yet, but he's got 4.5 hours to get that car on the podium. Goes by the Rebellion, and the number 3 car is fighting hard. Meanwhile, IDEX Sport move ahead, and Paul Lafargue up to 7th in class, starting from the pit lane a lap behind everybody else, those 2 EDEX Sport cars. Blimey, what a storied race they have got. EDEX race alone fills a book.
EDEX week. Yeah. We'll come to that. Ben Keating, by the way, black and white flag for track limits.
Oh! And squirrels across the curves. Battle there with the Iron Lynx car. This is the remaining Iron Lynx car.
The 60 car, Claudio Schiavone.
In fact, 75 still going, isn't it? With
no, 75 is out, 85 is still out there.
Okay.
So we've lost one of the 3, the 75 car, which was the 3rd car. And
a whole injector rail there being fitted onto the Gibson V8 in the Racing Team Netherlands car. It was a very good view of just what, in fact, it wasn't an injector rail, was it? That wouldn't have just plugged in. That was all the, what do you call them? Spark units. Yeah. There's a proper word for them that eludes me at the moment. Well, there goes our LMP2 leader past our GTE leader. Well, in fact, that's not the leader, is it? That's what the car that... Oh, it is the leader. So the one blue light doesn't appear to be shining very brightly through the grime on the side of the United Autosports car. I don't think it's mandatory for those position marker lights to work. It is mandatory for the illuminated door panels to work.
Yeah, we saw that, didn't we, in that epic chase in 2016, where there was a protest, as I recall, from Ford about the position lights on the Risi Ferrari. Yeah,
the Ford Ferrari and the Ford Porsche battles brought quite a lot of protests over the last couple of years, didn't they?
Out goes the Jumbo-sponsored 29 car.
A long way back from where they would like to be. They're 16th in the class.
Was that Jean-Eric? That can't be Jean-Eric Verne going. Oh, hang on a minute. We've seen a.
Well, it's Verne because there's only one G-Drive car left
right,
now.
That is Gonzalez coming in.
So Roberto Gonzalez coming in. Is this the end of his stint?
So Verne must have been
a little
Verne
early.
has been in and out.
Yes, because he's a lap behind, in fact. So that was Jean-Eric Verne going back onto the same lap as the 38 Jota car.
So this is the end of the lapper required for Roberto Gonzalez.
So how has he done with the tyres and how has he done with the fuel?
So Antonio Felix da Costa will be getting in the car.
Now there's a man who knows how to balance tyres, pace and well, not fuel, but charge. Antonio dropping into the car, the Formula E champion in this crazy season. He takes over from Roberto Gonzalez. And it's not about second place, it's about trying to win this race.
Well, came in from 43 seconds behind as we got another.
Yikes. Well, that's the 60 car again. Yeah, these are replays of drivers spinning, coming up the hill into bright sunshine. And maybe that's just enough for them to slightly lose their braking marker. 78 car will have time added to its pit stop for an infringement. That's the Proton car of Horst Felbermeyer Jr., Michele Beretta and Max van Splunteren. That was Horst spinning it, so a pit stop infringement. That'll be a visor not being down, too many men across the line, not having the earthing line clipped on, not having a fire extinguisher present.
Was it possible that because we've not been tracking the detail on some of these, are these the fuel fill times? There is a sliding scale of penalty for...
Yes, could be.
Busting the minimum fuel fill times.
Could be, exactly so. Putting the fuel in too fast in the AM class. Well, let's hear from our race leaders. Brendan Hartley is aboard the number 8 Toyota Gazoo Racing TS050.
Very tight, just too much understeer. Okay, copy.
Very tight, too much understeer. Other than that, didn't get much out of that.
Fastest lap of the race for the number 3 car, 3:22.185 from Romain Dumas, as that was that message was coming through. Not going to do it on pace, keeping the pressure up.
Well, they're not going to do it by relenting the pressure either, are they? And actually, that time round, 3:22.1 for Romain Dumas, 3:23.1 for Brendan Hartley. Now, they have got a 4-lap lead in the number 8 Toyota. But as number 7 has proved, that might not be enough if something goes awry. So we still have a battle on our hands, not just between the 3 and the 1 Rebellion cars. You can see they are a chicane apart on the Mulsanne. That's the battle for second now. Might become an awful lot more critical should something happen to the number 8 Toyota. There is the number 7 Toyota in 4th place, getting a lap back from both of the Rebellions, and here is the number 8 car, and they're lapping at very similar speeds.
Lead gap in LMP2, by the way, 1 minute and 42 seconds is the gap for Antonio Felix da Costa to attack. two Portuguese drivers. 1-2 at the moment. Jean-Eric Verne is a further 45 seconds back, with Nico Jamin 49 seconds back. These are not big gaps.
Do we know why Paul de Resta had a 3-lap stint 2 stints ago? Did he have a problem?
Don't know.
I will see what I can do to assist.
What I do know is that Toyota's Alistair Moffat tells us that the number 7 car, the reason its pace isn't quite where it ought to be is it has floor damage after hitting some debris in the early morning hours, but it takes too long to replace it, and so they are just going to carry on. So the car that for 12 hours, give or take a few minutes, looked like winning the race, now is struggling and may not make the podium. Hugues de Schonack there in the Rebellion garage, and Bart Hayden alongside him. Let's see what these guys can do. They are 2nd and 3rd at the moment, and that would be a mighty effort for them to get both cars on the podium, which Toyota at the moment do not look like doing. But we are a long way from there. 4.5 hours to go in the 24 hours of Le Mans. And if history here teaches us anything, it isn't over until you have passed the checkered flag. Toyota, of all teams, can tell you that.
So on the side of the Rebellion, you saw the sticker 2008 to 2020. Who were they here with in 2008?
Who were they here with? With Seba. I mean, in terms of the drivers, I mean, this is a team that's raced obviously in LMP2 in both eras. We've seen them in GT under different names, under Speedy Garage names, etc. With Spiker, was Rebellion efforts. Were you part of that effort?
I was, yeah.
So that was Rebellion. That was what you were digging for.
That's what I remember.
I apologise. I didn't realise it was an ironic point being made. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's a storied history here, and it's sad to see the end of it, is the reality here. We've not spoken probably enough about that. A 3rd place overall here at Le Mans for that team. I think is it 2 or maybe even 3 4th places overall in LMP1 against proper factory opposition, multiple factory opposition. Yeah. And yeah, through the
I think 2012 was a good year for them,
yeah,
wasn't it? Did they make the podium overall?
No, they've made the overall podium just the once, and that's far more recently, and could have made the podium overall in LMP2, but had the major penalty for, if you remember, drilling the hole in the engine cover. That's right, because the starter motor kept jamming and they had to keep taking the engine cover off, so they drilled a hole in it so they could whack it with a stick. Yeah. And of course that was a material change to homologated bodywork and therefore instant exclusion. Speaking of jamming, Nico Jamin is on it. See what you did there? Yeah, absolutely. He sniffs a potential result here in a battle with Jean-Eric Verne. Under a minute is the gap between 4th and 3rd. Yeah. 4th, the worst place in the world at Le Mans or any other international motor race. And Panis Racing are going for this. Well, it's a kind of three-way fight, really, isn't it? United Autosports at the moment half a lap ahead of the battle between Jota, G-Drive, Panis, Graf, and maybe Senior Tech as well. It doesn't take much imagination or much of a disappointment for any of those 5 cars for a couple of their rivals to end up ahead of them on the podium. And we've seen an awful lot of disappointment so far in this race. What about Aston Martin, the 97 car back in the pit lane? No sign of brake change on that car yet, but they're looking. They will hold off as long as they humanly can, won't they? Because they know it will give a big advantage to Ferrari, which has made a brake change, and they don't want to give the AF Corsa 51 car any glimmer of a clean run up to the flag. Tyres ready for that car, though. Yep. Was that still Alex Lynn's helmet in the car? I think they were just doing a drinks bottle. I don't think it was a change. We'll have to eventually, because he'll just, like all the mechanics, drop dead from exhaustion.
Okay, let's hear from Alex Le Gui down in the pit lane. Good morning, Al. It's nice and warm there, not scorchio like it's been for the last couple of days. You've got news from United.
Good morning. It is getting scorchio, though. I can feel it. Yes, it was just a short stint with the rest. They just took the opportunity to pit while there was the yellow on the straight.
Yeah, it makes sense. You lose less time doing a pit stop and a driver change when other cars are going through a slow zone. So it's the equivalent of pitting under a full course yellow, but of course it's not full course, but it does slow the other cars down. So if you can do it then it's a good opportunity. So that's why United swapped Paul di Resta over to Felipe Albuquerque in the number 22 car. Will Owen in the pits in 32 rather, the car that was battling for the lead of the race before it struck problems. 71 was also battling for the lead in the GT Pro class before it struck problems. It's now battling for third place with the 95 Aston, but the gap between them is 2 whole laps. So the 71 car has been the lesser smile de pod of the 2 Ferraris. That had a right front damper failure in the middle of the night. It caused damage to the car in terms of a left rear puncture as well while Sam Bird was at the wheel, and that's what costed a couple of laps in the pit lane. Because time flies by when your car is stationary, as well as when you're the driver of a train riding on the footplate there and back again, and at the moment the car stops, suddenly everybody else just races away from you. It becomes very, very hard indeed to make up that lost ground.
GT Pro, we're looking at one of the Porsches, just have not been there all day and yesterday for that matter as well. That battle though, ebbing and flowing, the 51 Ferrari in the lead at the moment, but that's all ebbing and flowing on pit stop strategy. The 97 car back out in the hands of Maxime Martin, but the underlying story there is that all the cars around it have had a brake change, the 97 has not.
Unusual for the Porsches, isn't it? Because normally they're pretty bulletproof.
Yeah, bulletproof and ready for this race in every way, political, technical, and strategic.
You know, they just haven't, apart from qualifying was half decent, but apart from that, the race, they just haven't looked like they're going to mount much of a challenge at all.
It's been a very tough race, and said a little bit earlier, can't remember the last time that Olaf Mantai's cars underperformed so disappointingly here. It's not that they've been short of pace, that they forgot to pack the luck. Maybe that only comes to them in June. Here's the 92 car, which has had a rotten race from start to finish. They are down in 41st place overall. It's still 7th in class though, so again, you've got to slightly look at the brighter picture and say, well, it's good championship points. Not as good, I'm afraid, as the cars, obviously, that are first, second and third in class, but you've just got to do what you can do. And here at Le Mans, that means even if your setback is on lap 1, you still have to fight to the final lap of the race. Speaking of which, Graham Goodwin, 4 hours and 22 minutes left. We have got 316 laps completed. Are we still on target for a record distance?
Haven't been for a while. Those safety cars going into the night rather took that one away from us. We are about to, though, see something we haven't seen for quite a while, which is the 2 Toyotas on track together. The number 8 car catching the 7 at the moment.
And it looks as though the number 7 car has just hasn't quite unlapped itself yet from the number 3 Rebellion. Number 3 Rebellion leaving the pit lane has now. So the number 3 Rebellion on the same lap behind it is, or in front of it, is the number 7 Toyota. So in front of it on the road, behind it on the road as well, if you like. Don't do that. Now, is that a sign of brakes becoming increasingly hard to control in the 97 Aston?
That was the 98, wasn't it?
I'm not sure. Didn't see the number. They all look
probably
exactly
the Dalana car. It was his sponsor on the side, wasn't it?
Ah, right, okay.
But still, there's a sizable chunk of me to listen what's going on with first Antonio Felix da Costa chasing the lead and the 38 Toyota car.
I have the liver dragon speed show. I have no pace, no pace. Sorry. Copy. Do what you can. Copy. Do what you can. We're trying to find a solution for the next stop. Copy.
Did he say no brakes?
No pace.
No pace. Got the 7 Toyota behind him. It's an easy pass from Kamui Kobayashi. It's not a battle for position, just trying to get round. But worryingly, Antonio saying he had to let the Dragon speed go. GT Pro Class, this is the Risi Competizione Ferrari.
He's not very deep into that stint either, Da Costa.
No, he's only been in a couple of laps, hasn't he? So the Dragon Speed car with Renke van der Zande, that's the 27 car you just saw in the front there, the white car, the remaining Dragon Speed car. That's in 13th place. It's several laps behind, but the worry there for Jota is that a car that is several laps behind is pulling away from them quite quickly. 92 had full service for Kevin Escher. Michael Christensen taking over. Team checking the rear lights, team checking the brakes on the 90 Aston Martin. This is our GTE AM leader. And they're, I guess, looking at the depth of those cooling vanes to see how much meat there is on the disc and how much meat there is on the pad. Royal Leamington Spa's Jonathan Adam at the wheel of the car.
Well, could this be the biggest results ever for Tom Ferrier and TF Sports? It's not done yet.
Nope.
Edex Sport to go blasting by. That's the 17 car. Patrick Pilet. What a week. What a story.
Yeah. Phone call at 1 AM on, what was it, Thursday, to say,
would you like to come and
can you get to Le Mans? Yeah.
And by the way, it's not a Porsche.
No, and by the way, it's not a GT car either. So first time he has ever raced a prototype.
And by the way, can you start from a lap down?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the good news is it's a prototype drive. You won't have to pay for anything. Bad news is you're starting from the pit lane a lap behind everybody else. Yeah, who would have thought?
And that car, by the way, running in 16th place overall, 12th in the class. That doesn't sound that impressive, does it? But that is huge progress for a team that, to be blunt, was thrown together in adversity. Hugh de Schonack.
Yep. And the sister car, the 28 car, the red Edex Sport car, is in 7th overall. Can you imagine a top 6 finish for that team? Mind you, actually, when we saw the 2 cars wrecked on Thursday, can you imagine them starting?
No.
Never mind, could you imagine them finishing?
I'll correct you slightly. It's 11th overall, 7th in class.
7th in class, yeah.
That doesn't take away from the achievements during the day. There's the other car passing the 17 that is worthy of comment in the same breath. The 36 car, 6th in class, into the top 10 overall, chasing down the So24 Hasbro Graf car, and will go by this time because that car has pitted. Thomas Laurent, quickest lap of the 36 cars race, 3:30.823. Clearly not lost any of his pace after the terrifying accident he suffered at Spa.
Well, Charles Milesi, the silver driver in the Graf racing car, along with Vincent Capillier, another silver driver. Their third man, James Allen, is gold rated. So Charles Milesi may be stepping out of the car in this pit stop. Just ahead of them, Nico Jamin has just left the pits for Panis, and Sinutek go by. Thomas Laurent up to 5th place in class, goes by the Graf car.
What dramas await here. The mirror bouncing along.
See, Patrick Pilet didn't even have time to take the windscreen strip off his visor.
That's a great shot.
Yeah. The hypermotion camera just shows you all sorts of detail that the human eye cannot possibly take in.
Twitter question that I don't know the answer to, and I strongly doubt any of us in the booth do, but it's a point worth making. When was the last time a privateer achieved the fastest lap overall against a manufacturer? Something that Rebellion hold at the moment.
You would have to look back to Heures du Mans run cars, I think.
I think maybe Henri Pescarolo.
Ooh, nice shout.
I think Henri Pescarolo maybe in 2005 with the, well, we called these cars hybrids, the Toyotas, but they were then called hybrids as a mixture between two rule sets. I suspect it might have been that car back then.
Right. Leader is in the pits, Brendan Hartley, Toyota number 8.
One of the drivers, good morning everyone, one of the drivers from that Pescarolo car is in this race, Manu Collard.
Indeed. Let's have a look back at that.
Fastest man around the Nordschleife in a Peugeot minibus also. Remember going on to the Nordschleife, my very first experience of it was in a V10 engined Audi RS6 estate. And in front was a Pescarolo Peugeot minibus full of crew, driven by Manu Collard. And he went on through the barrier before us on the tourist Fahren. We never saw him again. Genuinely.
He features in one of my favourite 2 Nordschleife stories that don't involve racing cars. One of which was a Porsche 911 road car going out there with Manu, I think a Marino Franchitti in the back seat. I think it was Stefano Ortelli in the front seat, and I can't immediately recall who was in the passenger seat. That car came back with all 4 laughing like drains and smoke from literally every orifice that car had.
I can imagine Manu Collard probably going, "This is a left, correct?" as they go over a blind barrier into what he knows is a flat-out right-hander. That's often the way when a driver has fellow drivers on board. Yes, our Audi topped 175 on the pits down the Dottinger, on the pit straight down the Dottinger Heures, and we still didn't catch the minibus. Terrifying. 850 horsepower or something ridiculous in the Audi. And
Gary Watkins, by the way, offers 1997 and TK in the US Porsche against factory opposition.
Okay, but it was a factory car, not a factory-run car. Okay, yeah.
No, yeah, that was a privateer car, wasn't it? Yeah. They just cut the roof off, didn't they?
Hacksawed.
True.
What about...
I still say Orica run Peugeot.
CGR a year when he won it.
Fastest lap?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'll have a look. That might be one for me to investigate in more depth with a gallon of coffee on a Wednesday after Le Mans.
On a wet Wednesday, of which there will probably be quite a lot, given that it is mid-September. Let's hear from Gustavo Menezes in the 3rd place #1 Rebellion.
Yes, can you go real round on brake fires? Can you go real round on brake fires to save the front brakes? Yeah, is temperature okay? Temperature is okay? Yes, you can go real round. Temperature is okay. You just need to remove some energy from the front. Go real round brake bias, please.
Yeah, they're concerned about front brakes.
And guys, Jamie, you know, he's asking him to back the balance a little bit more to the rear, which makes the car a little more prone to locking up. But he hasn't said, I need you to move it back 2 or 3 clicks or anything. He's leaving it to the driver to find a balance between preserving the brakes and survivability, because the last thing you want is to nurse the brakes by backing it off into a gravel trap.
Yeah, the rear brake wear is minimal in comparison with the front anyway. And, you know, coming into the last 4 hours of the race here, the front brakes will be reaching the limit, and they're not thinking about this lap or this stint. They're thinking about the last hour.
And a regular contributor to our podcast with questions, SRA Smoking Puppy 841, great name, on Twitter, says that Loic Duval set the fastest lap in 2010 for Orica in their Peugeot 908 with a 319.
Hey, thank you.
Yes,
Hey, thank you. It's always my suspicion, if there's somebody who does things that the factory can't, Heures du Mans is my go-to man. That wasn't any well-remembered fact. It was just that that car was so competitive. 91 is in the pits. Pit stop under investigation for
the second place MP2 car.
38 Jota car. Ooh. Oh dear. Last stop of car number 90, the TF Sport Aston that leads GTE-AM, also under investigation. Uh-oh.
2 key cars in the race right now.
No kidding. 4 hours and 10 minutes to go. Well, better than getting a penalty with only 10 minutes to go. At least you got 4 hours and 10 to recover from it if there is a penalty.
Well, TF have got an edge, but we've seen some hefty penalties dealt out. 30-second stop and holds.
Yeah. TF 2 minutes and 30 ahead of the second place car, which unbelievably is the 83 AF Corsa Ferrari, has had no dramas that we're aware of, and is in second place, having been way down in the teens in the class, if actually maybe not even in the 20s early on in the race. And that car has just done what it does in every World Endurance race, carrying on. Well, there's a very non-midsummer view to the trees here, lots of autumnal colours.
4 fastest laps, sorry. Rizzi Competizione, Jules Gounon, René van der Zan, and I think it's Jean-Eric Verne with a 28.8 in LMP2, so got a few fastest laps happening.
Yeah, cool.
You know when it's a great morning of racing at Le Mans, when I suddenly looked to the chart on the wall and realised I should have left the mic half an hour ago. Absolutely blinding stuff this morning.
I think there's still time for breakfast, actually, Gigi, so go and see if there's some slightly dried up eggs and a little bit of fat-covered bacon left.
Thanks.
Yeah. Did I sell that well? Graham Goodwin
No.
departs stage left. Ben is busy catching up with all the news from Rally Turkey. And Peter Dumbreg, Jamie Campbell-Walter with me, Martin Haven in the booth, with just a little over 4 hours to go. Gentlemen, you've both been at this stage of the Le Mans race. Mechanics are exhausted, their eyes are full of sand and just absolutely cream cracker, dead on their feet. But still, every time you come into the pits, they're out there poised like tigers, ready to spring into action. And that's so important, isn't it, Peter? Because one fumble in a pit stop at this stage could be really critical.
Absolutely. I think each mechanic, driver, everyone in the team has a responsibility, and they all know their roles, and they're all experienced. So, yeah, they can wake up at a moment's notice and go to work, and they're so drilled in their work that they'll just almost do it on autopilot.
Well, a funny Le Mans in all sorts of years. Veteran journalist Andy Cotton will be 46 tomorrow. He's never had a birthday on the Monday after Le Mans, and probably in his lifetime never will again.
Who's that? Andrew Cotton. Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Happy birthday for tomorrow, Andrew.
Yeah, his dad, a journalist before him, so like a number of the drivers in the race, following in his father's footsteps.
Another thing that happened yesterday, which you missed, was it was International Talk Like a Pirate Day. And you love that day. I know you love that day.
I do love that day. Aha, matey. What does a pirate say the birthday after he's been 79? Our matey! Hey, thank you. Here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
We shouldn't have told him that, Peter. We got rubbish jokes coming out of him now.
You should have told me yesterday. We could have worked them out of the system before I got overtired. What was the #1 car in the pits for 1.5 hours ago? Before you go, Graham, hands up. Bodywork. Oh, yes, bodywork that didn't seem to fit is the answer, Fiona Miller. So Fiona recovering returning to the shift from her breakfast. So here's the race leader, #8 Toyota, 4 laps clear of the battle for second place, which is now down to 16 seconds between Rebellion #3, which has the upper hand over Rebellion #1. Our LMP2 leader is in the pits, Felipe Albuquerque in the #22 United Autosports car. Through the night, gentlemen, we watched it battle with the 32 sister car. The balance of power flip-flopped one way, then the other. There's the Michelin man in his blue and yellow suit, wandering around, checking on the tyres. Felipe having a quick catch-up on Twitter on the dash. The adjusters there on the side. There's the G-Drive car is in as well. This is Jean-Eric Verne from third. So first and third in sync on the pit stops.
A quick stint from John-Eric Verne, 3:30.5 average lap time.
That's good.
Which is a fair bit quicker than Da Costa in front.
Those are good numbers. Well, we heard Da Costa, didn't we, a few minutes ago, complaining about lack of pace, having to let a car go that was 3 or 4 laps behind him. And fresh boots for Jev. That means he's staying in for another double, you would think.
You saw that mechanic there. He went to go back on because he thought, did I do it up properly?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's something you think about now. They're tired and they've been awake all night, and they have to be 100% sure that that wheel is on tight, because 30 seconds after leaving this pit lane, that car is going to be doing close to 200 miles an hour.
Yeah. And it, literally your life in their hands for the mechanics every single time they do that. They're trying to save a 1/10 of a second in the pit lane, but the catastrophic loss of a wheel on the Mulsanne straight could cost an awful lot more than is possible to save. Felipe Albuquerque heads back out, Jean-Eric Verne heads back out. They are a lap apart. First to second was 40 seconds. 5 laps into his stint, Maxime Martin. Mediums on the rear axle, fronts on the soft. We saw this before. Clearly the Aston, with lots of torque, more capable of tearing up its rear tyres than its fronts. We've seen that split axle strategy quite a lot during the hotter parts of the day yesterday. So they're still able to get away with that soft, quote, nighttime compound on the front. And we talked about during the night how much more bite the Aston seem to have, how much more front the cars seem to have compared to the Ferrari, and it's possibly that ability to run the softer, grippier front tyre that maybe the Ferrari can't do when it needs the mediums on the rear. It also needs the mediums on the front. Well, the 51 Air Corsa car is the meat in an Aston Martin sandwich right now. The potential frailty for Aston is the brakes, and that remains the case for the 90 car for TF Sport as well.
I have a feeling 97, if I was them anyway, I'd be waiting for the next slow zone, safety car, whatever. That's when you try to do it as a team.
If you need to do it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They've got not a bad lead, is it? For some 40 seconds. These guys are pretty quick at changing the brakes. They've all got quick release systems now. But the other option, of course, is to get the brake balance wound backwards a little bit, because it will be the front brakes that are critical, and just lift and coast a bit and brake a little bit earlier, just to take that load of heat when you hit the brakes. Because in a race car versus a road car, we do hit the brake pedal, and yeah, be interesting to see. Here's a car, I think, is it having a brake change? No, it's having some repairs.
Yeah, it looks like it's having some debris dragged out to the back. This is the 88 car, the last running car, the one that was the first retirement. At least that's what we thought, that's what the team PR thought. Thomas Preining was heaved off the road. Lap 2, lap 3 was it, at the Dunlop chicane by somebody else's accident, and then sat at the side of the track unseen by us for well over an hour. And it seems that what had happened was the car had an alternator failure, or the battery for some reason wouldn't restart the car, and it seems that he had to sit and wait for the battery to regain enough charge, as they do, as you'll know from your own road car, particularly if you've got an older car or started off driving older cars, and eventually managed to get it fired back up and driven back to the pits. And it was then unofficially unretired, because it hadn't officially been retired, but the 88 car still last on the road. Thomas Preining's in the pit lane, and the car he's chasing, Rino Mastronardi in the Iron Lynx car, 75, that is in the pit lane as well.
Going back to the GT Pro battle, leading up to the race and qualifying and testing, Aston Martin seemed to not show their hand, whereas Porsche did. So Porsche did well in qualifying, Aston were thereabouts, and it seems to me that when they got hit with a BOP, when was that, 2 years ago? Last year. They learned their lesson.
Yep, last year they were there or thereabouts in qualifying, had a massive BOP hit before qualifying actually, and then were nowhere in qualifying. Then they had a bit of the BOP released for race day, but it was still last and not quite last in the field. So
it's been a measured approach to this race, and it looks like so far, knock on wood for them, that they've played the right kind of game, because it's all a game, isn't it? It's all, you know, as soon as BOP came in, you had to be careful what you did. You didn't want to show too much speed or else you were going to get hit. So it's all politicking and speed at the right time, but no one can hide now in the race. This is it.